Morning everyone, I think we've got a great episode for you. I'm calling this the Rangefinder Rumble because I'm using the Fuji X-Pro3 right here and the Leica M-P 240 right here. And we're going to take some different shots using just the rangefinder for both cameras, and I think you'll enjoy it. So the challenge really is this Leica M240 going to hang in with the Fuji X-Pro3, because this camera here was built in 2014 and this one was 2018, and quite honestly the Fuji is head and shoulders above it in many different ways. But this is a good old-fashioned mechanical rangefinder, and this is an electronic version of it.
So here's the Leica rangefinder. You can see the patch in the middle moves back and forth like this. It's not blown up to 10x like the Fuji is here. In the bottom right hand corner you can see focusing is a little bit more enhanced.
Now, the biggest problem here is that this Leica's got a very expensive lens on it. And the Fuji's got the Fujicron 23 f2, essentially the same thing as the Leica, but you know, it's really not the same thing. We'll see what how the contrast lays out and everything. And the sensors are vastly different. This is a Sony sensor, and this is I don't know who this one's made by, but it's certainly not in the same range. And the X-Pro3 sensor is a little bit larger. The Leica is 24 megapixels and this is 26. So we'll see what we're going to get. And I'm going to try something a little bit different. We're down at a rail yard here in Rockport, and the interesting thing is they used to have a really cool small narrow gauge type railway that brought iron over to the forge that's down in Pigeon Cove. And there's a really old-fashioned gear-driven hoist here. I'm going to take some shots of that. And then we've got a really interesting building over here I'm going to try and photograph too. So let's see what happens. So the interesting thing with both these cameras is that the lenses are quite different in that this lens, the Fuji lens, I can get a lot closer. So I got to try and keep it to a like a 2 meter distance with my Leica. So I'm going to start off with the Fuji. Now the cool thing about this is that we've got a really large focusing patch down in the right hand corner, which really gives you a very a nice area to focus in. And when it's in focus, I've got it, I don't have it set to peaking, I've got it set to like my Leica. So here's the first shot here. Let's see what that looks like with the Leica. Now the patch here is not as large in the middle of the Leica.
Okay, so here are the raw files. The Fuji is on the left and the Leica is on the right. And boy, you can see that the Leica sensor is really warm. So here are the corrected versions, and I've used my same preset for both of them, but you can see that the Leica file is still warm. So at this point, it really is personal preference.
Out here, it's kind of cool. We got a nice vertical going on of this here. Also shot a horizontal going that way. Really interesting shot of these gears of the shadow. I love shooting here early in the morning because it's kind of cool.
So same thing here, but you can tell this is a really kind of a warm subject anyway, but it's because it's got a lot of rust in it. And you can see here in the corrected version, the Leica file, I've kept it still a little bit warm because that's my preference anyway, and that's probably why I like Leica stuff. But look how natural the left-hand version Fuji is.
There's another one of my famous tips. It's not what you photograph, it's how you photograph it. So jot that one down. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go over and photograph a really interesting rail yard barn or storage place where the trains used to pull up to it and unload feed and things like that. So we'll see what we'll get over there. It's all beat up, so you never know. We might get something really interesting out of it. So we're heading over to this barn, and so far I'm enjoying the competition between these two cameras. The muscle memory with my Leica is pretty easy. I'm still getting used to the larger patch down in the right-hand corner of the Fuji. So we'll see what happens. Here's this old barn. It's kind of cool. Got a real interesting sign right here that I'm going to shoot. Look at this. A blue seal feeds. That's cool. Wow, that's going to be really nice. So to get a shot of this blue seal feeds sign here, I'm going to stand up on the pavement here, and I'm still not up as high as I'd like. I'd like to be right on it so the parallax isn't so bad, but we're going to see what we get. And the 35 is not necessarily the best lens for this, but it's not bad. I'm going to straighten it out a little bit.
Now the difference here is that the Fuji file on the left is a little bit overexposed, even though they're both shot at the same exposure. I've corrected them for parallax and a few other things, and you can see the one on the left, the Fuji file, is a little bit more natural, and the one on the right is still a little bit warm.
This is kind of an interesting shot here, these timbers, and see if we can block the sun a little bit. Both, they're going in different directions, so it's kind of cool.
Now in this circumstance, the Fuji file on the left is a little bit overexposed still, but what I've done is I've optimized them in these corrected versions coming up right now so that I could eventually make them black and whites. And honestly, I like the black and white versions much, much better, and those are right here. See how I love the way the angles of these timbers are, different angles. There's a ramp coming up to a platform, pretty cool. So you can see here in the Fuji file on the left, Leica file on the right, and the Leica file is still a little bit warm. So these corrected versions, much better. I love the tone and the contrast, and maybe the warmer one is better for me. Now I really like this building. I like the yellow at the top part of it and the red at the bottom. You can see in this shot here, the vertical, the Fuji file is definitely more realistic than the Leica file on the right. And even more so when I correct them, the Leica file is definitely a little bit warmer and the Fuji file looks more normal as to what I saw.
This old roof just falling apart here. Really, really interesting. What a really neat building this is.
So with these two raw files, you can see really the differences in the sky, the color of the sky in these raw files. But when we go to the corrected versions, you can still see the difference in the yellow. The yellow of the building really is more enhanced along with the sky with the yellow cast really that's with the Leica file.
So it was really interesting working with both these cameras at the same time. I really thought that the electronic viewfinder was just a little bit different in that, you know, and I'm using the split image, which is kind of funky. You know, you get the two lines together, and then the image gets a little bit digital looking, and that's when you know it's in focus. With the Leica, it's you know, you're putting those two images together. And it really, that's the way it's supposed to be because it's mechanical, but that's the way it works. And I really enjoy that experience with my Leica, but I kind of also like the experience I got with the Fuji too. The Fuji is just different. Now, the two cameras themselves are vastly different. This one is a lot lighter and this lens is a lot smaller. I shouldn't say it's a lot smaller. It's a lot lighter, a lot less expensive, that's for darn sure. And I found that the experience is just different. The Leica camera is heavier. It's made out of brass. This is made out of titanium. I think the top plate and the bottom plate, something like that. And it was just, like I said, it's just a different experience. The Leica is made that way. And I guess that, you know, the Fuji, I kind of like using the Fuji frame lines because it reminds me of using my Leica. And boy, you can sling the Fuji over your shoulder without any trouble at all, and you don't even know it's there. The Leica, it's a little bit heavier and it's a little bit thicker body, but I enjoyed both of them. You know, this is I called it the rangefinder rumble because it was kind of a competition of the two. In my mind, I just wanted to see what it was like, and it was a lot of fun. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, and by the way, thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun shooting the crane over there, and this building here was a lot of fun. And I got some really interesting images. I think you're going to like them. Well, you've already seen them by now, but I know you'll like them. Hey, if you wouldn't mind, give me a like and a comment and subscribe to the channel. That would be awesome if you like this video. So that's it for this week, and we'll catch you next time.